Good morning. Welcome to our weekly podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing a series of issues, and I hope that you are encouraged as we talk. I'm here with one of my students, and Josiah, and he can tell you more about himself as we go on. But what I've decided to do is I wanted to ask a young person some questions based on what I have seen amongst young people, and I thought it would be good to talk to someone who is actually young and who is in the world of these young people. Before we do that, the first thing I want to mention is that I saw a newspaper article yesterday that talks about the game Fortnite, and Josiah, of course, is familiar with it, and his generation is familiar with it. It's new to me, but the challenge now is not just the issue of the game, it's the issue that some people are spending up to 12 hours playing this game, and I'm sure there's other games people spend 12 hours on. But we just want to tackle some things and encourage young people to pursue excellence in all that they do, including how they spend their time in leisure. So briefly, Josiah and I talked about two categories of people, and I'm going to allow him to introduce these two different categories. And in this series, today's talk, we're mostly going to look at one side, and maybe next time we'll look at the other side. So Josiah, why don't you tell us, what are the two categories that we observe amongst young people of today?
The two categories usually we see are people who miss the mark and people who just don't care. I'd say people who miss the mark are people who are trying to get the job done, but they just don't see the end goal. People who don't care, the name answers the question. They're just people who don't care about their schoolwork, their work life, their relationships with others, and that's just a dangerous concept. We have to care about what we're doing, or there's no purpose in doing it, really.
Yeah, that's very true. Thanks for stating those two. Of course, we have those who do care and are applying themselves and who are not missing the mark. And so if we could go back and zoom in on the first one, I asked Josiah, maybe it's not necessarily an epidemic everywhere, but this issue of apathy, I guess, Josiah, based on what you observe around us, do you see that pretty common with people you know?
People who don't care?
Yes.
Yeah. I choose a lot of my friends, carefully, and a lot of my close friends, they care about whatever. But there are people who I do know that they just don't care. They don't see a purpose in striving hard and pursuing their academics because they don't see the end goal and they just don't care. And why should they if they can choose an easier life and live a cushy life?
Yeah, but I guess my question is, what are could we say there's some root issues that you could highlight? And I know you've already highlighted some, but what are some of the reasons you think? Any other reasons why are we seeing young people who are in a country that has been blessed in many ways, who just, they're okay with C's, they rather go home and play games? What are some of the things you've seen, and what can we do to help them?
I think the family life is a big one. Families that don't function, there's no guide or there's no overarching, striving goal or whatever. So I think families are a big one, and the lack of spiritual awareness, regardless of the religion, even just the lack of religion at all in the country now, is appalling, and I think it's one of the leading reasons that we have so many people who don't care, because they don't. When you have a God or whatever, that's you striving to please Him, no matter what your religion is. So when you take religion out of the picture, and you have no God to please or whatever, there's nobody to please but yourself. And doing diligent work in school is taxing upon yourself, and there's no reason to do that if you're not trying to please anybody. That and just the peer pressure of the world, just to fit in to academically excel is to be somebody else, a minority, and that you get pressured not to do that.
Interesting. Now, of course, in our series, we're familiar with, we've talked about different issues on different podcasts, and we'll be talking more about some of these. And Josiah, of course, and I, we stand firm in as Christians, but we do understand that the lack of religion or just the lack of belief in anything does have an impact in terms of some of the values that a culture can have. And I know some people in other talk shows have talked about issues like that. And so what's even a little sadder is when we have Christians who are not seeking to live for the purpose for which they were made. And you have Christians who are just living anyhow. And I'm talking to the youth especially. And so part of our challenge to the Christian youth is to recognize that they need to step it up. They need to shine in every area of life. And again, America seems to be moving away from some of the fundamentals I just had a chance to visit Nigeria a few weeks ago, and one of the things I observed is that the fabric of family seems to be more intact, and that helps a lot. And so part of what I want to say about that for now, we can talk about this more in detail later, is number one, that the young people, as you're growing up, make sure you you have solid relationships, and make sure that you're careful when it comes to the issue of marriage. That's very important, because you're about to start a place that will raise up the next generation. So you want to be very careful in that process, because children need stable homes, and they need families to function the way God created them to be. So that's just something that I know I observed. The fabric of family is important, and the value system in America, more and more people want to just feed themselves and give to their flesh, rather than seeing how can I help somebody else? How can I be a blessing to others? I remember Josiah did mention last week, I think we also talked about the fact that, if somebody doesn't know why they're doing what they're doing in school, or what the point is, that definitely makes things harder to care. And so I think that for the teachers, we need to do our best to encourage students to see the bigger picture of why it's important. So again, we want kids who have bought into apathy to come out of it, who have bought into complacency to come out of it. And so let's quickly touch on the second category, in terms of those who just want to, I want to get all A's, and I really don't care how I go about getting all A's, and I'm just going to do that. I'm going to pour my whole life into getting all A's and not be well-rounded. What do we have to say to those people?
I think you have to balance your life with your academics and your social life and your relationships with family or whatever, because if you throw yourself all at one specific area of your life, the other areas of your life are lacking, and you don't have relationships for when times of need come and you're down on your knees. Nobody's going to be there for you, because all you've done is you throw yourself at your grades or whatever. But people who miss the mark, I think, are trying to, like you said, they're trying to get the A's and they're trying to accomplish it, but they're throwing themselves too far. It's like a scale. You got to find that balancing point. Mm-hmm. And either you're too far to you just don't care, you're too far to the point where you don't care about anything else but that specific subject in your life.
Wow. Yeah, so we're not saying again that people shouldn't give the best they can in academics, but the balance is important. And so we want to encourage young people to really examine where they're at, and where they're at, where are you at, and how can you seek to grow and do better with balance and moderation, with investing in relationships, face-to-face in relationships. And of course, this issue of moderation with some of these games that people are playing for hours, we really have to be careful, because our lives were made for a purpose, and we can't just use it in looking at alternate realities. So we'll talk more about some of these issues in detail, but we just wanted to start a series discussing some of the challenges that the young people are facing and how to be victorious. I'm going to leave us with one quote here that says, "Outstanding people have one thing in common, and that is that they have an absolute sense of mission." They have an absolute sense of mission. There's a short story here from Zig Ziglar, who talks about a guy called James Usher, an African-American lad who was born and spent his early years in Mississippi. He didn't know he had no chance in life. At 12, he was earning $120 a week, cutting yards, working with his best friend, Steve, who was a Caucasian who lived across the street. Steve's mother, Mrs. Colleen White, befriended James and was his benefactor in untold ways. Despite the fact that he was voted by his classmates the least likely to succeed, today this bright and highly motivated, articulate young man owns several businesses and is a motivational speaker and certified trainer. He provides scholarships for students and assists those who have financial needs. James is active in his church and is modest about his accomplishments. Years ago, his objective was to become wealthy by age 35 so that he could devote the rest of his life to helping other people realize and accelerate their dreams. One of James' major concerns is the negativism permeating much of his race. Too many have lost hope, and that's the reason he's committed to providing the training and encouragement that will make a difference in their lives. James Usher is an example for all of us of a person who is on mission. So, I'll leave you with this verse. "For whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith in Christ." So, Christian young people and young people as a whole need to wake up and seek to be all that they can be. Thank you for your time, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.